Hello everyone. Myself, Dr. P. Rajati from the Department of Oral Pathology is going to talk about periodontal ligament. In this presentation, I'm going to say what is periodontium, what is periodontal ligament, explain about the periodontal ligament space, how to interpret an intraoral periapical radiograph, about the cells of the periodontal ligament and the different types of fibers of the periodontal ligament, explain in detail about the principal fibers of the periodontal ligament, what are Sharpey's fibers, and about the intracellular and extracellular pathways of collagen degradation. Let's have a short recap on what are the structures of the teeth. So this is the cross section of the tooth where you can see the outer portion of the crown is covered by enamel and the outermost covering of the root is made up of cementum. Dentin and pulp are the other structures which extend both in the crown portion and also in the root portion of the tooth. So this tooth is usually located within the alveolar bone. Tooth is not directly attached to the bone. It is attached to the bone by means of the periodontal ligament fibers. It's a fibrous connective tissue that is going to attach the hard tissue bone with the hard tissue tooth. So outside the alveolar bone is the gingiva. So hard tissues are studied basically by two ways. One is by preparing ground sections. The other one is by preparing decalcified sections. So hard tissues are grind to thinnest sections and it is viewed under microscope to study its structure. That is, to study the structure of direction of enamel rods, S-shaped dentinal tubules, and cellular and acellular cementum. All these can be studied at the ground section of the teeth where you are grinding the tooth. So on the right side, you can see a ground section of the tooth where you can study enamel, dentin, and cementum. Pulp is a soft tissue which gets removed off while grinding the teeth and that cannot be studied. So, what is the difference between a hard tissue and a soft tissue? Hard tissue is different from the hard tissue, different from the soft tissue by its inorganic component. So hard tissue is hard because of the inorganic component that is present in the hard tissue. So the inorganic component vary in each type of hard tissue. So how is the hard tissue? Any hard tissue is formed generally by first formation of an organic matrix, and then there is going to be mineralization that is going to occur on the inorganic matrix. So the cells which is going to produce the hard tissue is first going to form the organic matrix. So over the organic matrix, the hydroxyapatite crystals is going to get deposited and it is going to get mineralized, grow in its size, and it's going to get mineralized and result in the formation of the inorganic matrix. If you can see, the composition of the organic and inorganic matrix varies between different types of hard tissues. Enamel is the highest calcified tissue. So the enamel is going to have the highest mineral content. It is the hardest tissue in the overall body. It is hardest even than the bone. So if you can see, the inorganic component of enamel is around 96%. The organic matrix is only 4%. Whereas dentin, the inorganic matrix is going to be 65% and the organic matrix is around 35%. In case of cementum, inorganic is 45 to 50%, organic is 50 to 55%. In case of bone, it's somewhat similar to dentin. Inorganic matrix comprises about 67% and organic matrix comprises about 33%. So I said there is one other way of studying the hard tissue. So the hard tissues are hard because of this inorganic matrix or the crystals that is deposited on the organic matrix. So the hard tissue is placed in a decalcifying solution. So when you place the hard tissue in a decalcifying solution, the mineral content gets removed off and the hard tissue becomes soft. Once it becomes soft, it can be processed normally, just like other soft tissues, and it can be stained with normal routine hematoxylin emulsion, and it can be viewed under microscope. That we call it as decalcified section. So we can study hard tissues by two ways. One is by preparing ground sections. The other one is by preparing decalcified sections. So we can study the hard tissues under decalcified sections except enamel. If you can see, the inorganic component of enamel ranges around 96%. So it has only 4% of the organic matrix, which usually gets washed off. That is, in decalcifying agent, along with the inorganic component, the organic component gets lost. So in the place where there is supposed to be enamel, you see it as just an empty space. Nothing will be visible in a decalcified section of enamel. But you can study other structures, that is dentin, cementum, pulp, periodontal ligament. All these structures can be studied in a decalcified section. So to study the periodontal ligament structure, it's less than 1 mm in its size. So it is not that easy to prepare. Even though it's a soft tissue, you cannot study the periodontal ligament just by preparing the sections. So what we do is, along with the hard tissue, that is the bone and the tooth, we do section it, and then it is kept in a decalcifying agent. And then once it becomes soft, that is all the inorganic component get removed off, it becomes soft in its consistency. So that time, after that, we do regular processing, and it is studied under, after making sections and mounting in slides, it is studied under microscope, where here in this decalcified section, you can appreciate the tooth, where you can see the dentin. In place of enamel, it is an empty space. You cannot appreciate enamel. You can see gingiva. You can appreciate even pulp tissue. This depends on where you're going to exactly making the section. So if you make it in the exactly in the center, you'll get a proper pulp portion, and then the periodontal ligament outside, which is going to be the alveolar bone. All this we'll deal in the subsequent slides. So let's see what is periodontium. As the name implies, peri means around, odent means tooth. Periodontium means connective tissue organ that is going to surround the tooth and attach the tooth to the jawbone. So this is going to adapt continuously for support of the tooth during its masticatory function. So what are all the structures that is going to comprise this periodontium? Periodontium comprises of first portion, that is cementum. Cementum, you remember, it is the outer covering of the root portion of the tooth. It's a structure of the tooth which is going to cover the outermost covering of the root portion. So cementum is one part of periodontium. Second is periodontal ligament fibers. That is the fibers that is going to attach the tooth with the jawbone. So periodontal ligament is the second part. Third is bone lining the tooth socket. So outside the tooth, it is alveolar bone, right? So the bone lining the tooth socket, that is the alveolar bone proper, is going to comprise a part of the periodontium. Fourth one is part of gingiva facing the tooth. That is nothing but the dento-gingival junction. So periodontium, when you say periodontium, it comprises of four structures. One is cementum. Second one is the periodontal ligament fibers. Third one is the bone lining the tooth socket. And fourth one is the part of gingiva facing the tooth. That is nothing but the dento-gingival junction. So attachment apparatus surrounding the tooth. That you call it as periodontium. Next, what is periodontal ligament? Here again, as the name implies, peri means around, odent means tooth. ligament is the terminology which we use usually for any fibrous connective tissue that is going to join the bone to bone. So hard tissue to hard tissue. Here in this case, periodontal ligament, the fibers are attached to cementum on one side and it is attached to the alveolar bone on the other side. If you can see, both are hard tissues again. So ligament, fibrous connective tissue attaching two hard tissues. Remember that. So it's very easy. Periodontal ligament is nothing but a fibrous connective tissue that is attaching the cementum of the tooth to the alveolar bone proper. So where is it located? It occupies the periodontal ligament space. So there is a space that is going to exist between the cementum of the bone and the periodontal surface of the alveolar bone. I am using here the terminology as periodontal surface. So the surface that is going to face the periodontal ligament fibers, you call it as periodontal surface of the bone. So periodontal ligament occupies the periodontal ligament space that is located between cementum and here you can see the periodontal surface of the alveolar bone. So what is its extension? So from where till where it is going to extend, that is where is it present? I've already said it is present in the periodontal ligament space between cementum and the alveolar surface of the bone. What is its upper limit? What is its lower limit? So instead of saying upper limit, lower limit, when you're talking about going towards the crown portion of the tooth, we call it as coronal. When you talk about something that goes towards the tip of the root, that is tip of the root, we call it as apex. So apical. So coronal means going towards the crown, apical means towards the tip of the root. So it extends coronally to most apical part of the lamina propria of gingiva. Lamina propria is nothing but connective tissue of the gingiva. So beneath the gingival epithelium, you have the connective tissue, nothing but the lamina propria. So it is going to extend coronally to the most apical part of the lamina propria of gingiva to the apex of the root. At the apical foramen, it is continuous with the dental pulp. So periodontal ligament occupies periodontal ligament space located between the cementum and the periodontal surface of the alveolar bone. Coming to width of the periodontal ligament, I have already said it is less than 1 mm. To say an exact range, it ranges from 0.15 to 0.38 mm. So the width of the periodontal ligament is 0.15 mm to 0.38 mm and it is thinnest around the middle third of the root. See, so if it is thinnest around the middle third, so it's thicker in the cervical and in the apical third. So it's thinnest around the middle third so that it has an hourglass appearance. So if you can see the hourglass, it is constricted in the center and bulged in the top and bottom. Here it is in the cervical and the apical region, it is wider and thinnest in the middle third of the root with an hourglass appearance. So the thickness of the periodontal ligament is going to decrease as age advances. So the periodontal ligament size is going to be around 0.21 mm in case of young adult, 0.18 mm in case of mature adult and 0.15 mm in case of older adult. If you can see the thickness decreases with age. Why we have to know about all these things? That is the width, what is periodontal ligament space, why should we know about it? So now here I'm going to introduce a new terminology, that is intraoral periapical radiograph. You all would have seen this X-ray. Most of you would have seen X-ray of teeth, right? So this film, we call it as intraoral periapical radiograph. So how do we get this? What is the basic behind this? So X-ray, when it is, when tissue is exposed to an X-ray, if it is a soft tissue, the X-ray will pass through it, penetrate through it. If there is any hard tissue, it will stop or it will absorb the X-ray beam so that it doesn't penetrate that particular tissue. If it can penetrate through the tissue, that means it is radiolucent. Soft tissues usually radiolucent. So it allows the X-ray beam to pass through it. So if you can see in this X-ray, you can see it in white and black in color, right? So I've said radiolucent, right? If it is radiolucent, it appears black in color. If it is a soft tissue, it appears black in color. If it is a hard tissue, it appears radio-opaque. Okay. So we all know enamel, dentin, cementum, bone. All these are hard tissues, right? So pulp and periodontal ligament is soft tissue. So in the region where pulp is there, you can appreciate very clearly a black space, right? That you call it as pulp space. So in the periodontal ligament region, that is outside the root and between the alveolar surface of the bone, you can see a dark line, black line, that you call it as periodontal ligament space. So how can you say what is enamel, what is dentin? See, if you can see, enamel is the hardest calcified tissue, right? With 96% of inorganic matrix. So compared to dentin, it is even more inorganic. So if you can see in this radiograph, compared to dentin, enamel is more radio-opaque. It is more white in color compared to dentin. So you can see a demarcation between the enamel and dentin. You can appreciate to a certain extent the dentino-enamel junction. So you can differentiate enamel, dentin, pulp, alveolar bone, periodontal ligament space. Here, if you can see, these premolars are in the forming stage. The root is not completed, but still you can appreciate the periodontal ligament space. So the molars, completely formed roots are seen. So in the molar, if you can see, to some extent, you can appreciate something like cementum. So usually you cannot differentiate cementum and dentin in a radiograph. That is, both are radio-opaque, right? And 65% and 50%, there is very minimal difference in the percentage. So you cannot appreciate much of demarcation, and also the cementum is thin. So you cannot appreciate that in a radiograph. So bone, you can see it's more of cancellous nature. That is why it appears somewhat cancellous. But there is a radio-opaque line that is going to surround the root portion of the tooth. That is nothing but, you would have studied in bone. It's a bundle bone where the Sharpie's fibers are going to get attached, and it is a cortical plate, right? So this radio-opaque lines outside this radiolucent line, that is the periodontal ligament space, we call it as lamina dura. It's actually bundle bone. In a radiograph, we call it as lamina dura. So periodontal ligament space is the radiolucent area between the radio-opaque lamina dura of the alveolar bone and a radio-opaque cementum. So in radiograph, the periodontal ligament space, this is magnified image. So it ranges from 0.4 mm to 1.5 mm on radiograph. I hope you would have understood how to study a interpret a radiograph. So now coming to periodontal ligament. Periodontal ligament, I've already said, it's a fibrous connective tissue. So this is going to have, here in the picture, if you can see, it's a fibrous connective tissue with more number of cells. So it's noticeably cellular and contains numerous blood vessels. Okay. And the fibers which is going to constitute this periodontal ligament is mainly collagen fibers. So these fibers in the cells are going to be embedded within a gel-like matrix that we call it as the ground substance, which is made up of proteins and polysaccharides. And what is the function of this periodontal ligament? It is going to attach the tooth to the alveolar bone and support the tooth during its function of mastication, and so on. So not only in attachment and support, it is also going to provide nutrition for the cells of the periodontal ligament, and these cells are going to synthesize and resorb the tissue, periodontium. Okay, that is cementum, bone, and the periodontal ligament fibers. And also in proprioception, this periodontal ligament function is attachment and support, provides nutrition, synthesis and resorption, and proprioception mechanism. Coming to cells of the periodontal ligament. What are the cells that you see in the periodontal ligament? Synthetic cells, resorptive cells, progenitor cells, epithelial rest of Malassez, defense cells. All these cells will be seen within the periodontal ligament. Coming to synthetic cells, we see three types of synthetic cells in the periodontal ligament. One is fibroblast, osteoblast, cementoblast. If you can see blast, anything, any cell name that ends with blast, it means that it is going to synthesize. Fibroblast, fibro meaning fibers. Fibroblast produce fibers. Osteoblast, name implies osteo meaning bone. That is going to produce bone. Cementoblast produces cement. Next, coming to resorptive cells. Anything that ends with clast. Okay, that means clast means destroy. So destroy the bone. That is osteoclast. I am coming from back. Cementoclast. That is cementoclast are the cells that is going to resorb the cementum. Osteoclast meaning resorb the bone. Note here, fibroblast. These are the only cells which has a dual function of both synthesizing collagen and destroying collagen. So it is going to both degrade the collagen and synthesize the collagen. Only cells that ends with blast that is going to destroy is fibroblast, right? Next, coming to defense cells, you will be seeing mast cells, macrophages, and eosinophils in cells of the periodontal ligament. So coming to synthetic cells. Any synthetic cell has a general psychological criteria. See, synthesis, how is it going to occur? Within the nucleus, the DNA is going to get transcribed to RNA, and it is going to synthesize free ribosomes within the nucleolus, and these free ribosomes are going to get transported to the cytoplasm, and thereby there is going to be an increase in the rough endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi membranes, all these for translation and transport of protein. That is how it is going to synthesize, right? So if you see these kind of cells lying close to the periodontal surface of the alveolar bone, then you call it as active osteoblast. If it is found next to the cementum, you call it as cementoblast. If these synthetic cells are going to be present within the fibrous connective tissue that is in the periodontal ligament, you call it as fibroblast cells. So here in this picture, on the right side, you can see tooth. So the eosinophilic region is nothing but dentin, and the hematoxyphilic line is acellular cementum, right? So the tooth, root portion of the tooth, where you can see a part of dentin and cementum. On the left hand side, you can see the alveolar bone. So between the alveolar bone and the tooth is the periodontal ligament space. So within the periodontal ligament, you can see numerous blood vessels. I have marked the blood vessels. Now the cells that is lying close to the cementum are nothing but the cementoblast cells. If you can see, it is not closely attached to each other. It is apart from each other, right? Cementoblast cells. On the surface of the alveolar bone, again, you can see synthetic cells, that is osteoblast cells, right? Few cells during formation get trapped within the bone. Those cells, you call it as osteocyte cells. You can see few osteocyte cells within the alveolar bone. If the blast cells during its formation gets trapped within it, you name it as, instead of blast, you call it as cyte. Likewise, you would have studied cementocytes in cementum, cellular cementum. Here you see only acellular cementum in this diagram. So if cementoblast cells get trapped within the cementum, you call it as cementocyte. If osteoblast cells get trapped within the bone, you call it as osteocyte. So you know cementoblast, you've seen osteoblast. Now in between, within the periodontal ligament fibers, if you can see, these are fibroblasts. Note that the fibroblast cells are oriented in the axis of the orientation of the fibers. The fibers somewhat obliquely disarranged. The fibroblast cells are also arranged in the direction of the fibers of the periodontal ligament. Now let's talk about synthetic cells. I've tabulated it so that it will be easy for you to compare and read. So as the name implies, osteoblast cells will produce bone, fibroblast cells will produce collagen fibers, cementoblast cells will produce cementum. And you know the location of the osteoblast is going to be on the periodontal surface of the alveolum, nothing but the endosteum. That is a specialized lining that is seen on the inner surface of the alveolar bone. Fibroblast is going to be located within the periodontal ligament fibers and cementoblast cells on the surface of the cementum. So how is the distribution of these cells going to be? If you can see, osteoblast cells are regularly arranged and it is going to be continuous with each other. So because these cells are continuous with each other, the cell junctions between these osteoblasts is going to be desmosomes and tight junctions close to each other. Remember, tight junctions. Whereas cementoblasts are not regularly arranged, so it has gap junctions and desmosomes. In case of fibroblast cells, it is regularly distributed throughout the periodontal ligament and the cell junction is going to be adherents and gap junctions. And these fibroblast cells are going to be arranged in the long axis parallel to the direction of collagen fibrils. Coming to shape of the cell, both osteoblast and cementoblast are cuboidal shaped cells, whereas fibroblast is fusiform or spindle shaped cells. Coming to cytoplasm of the cells, it is basophilic in case of both osteoblast and cementoblast. Whereas in case of fibroblast, it is eosinophilic, that is basophilic meaning hematoxyphilic, that is purple in color. Whereas fibroblast, it is the cytoplasm is eosinophilic and it has an extensive cytoplasm. Coming to the nucleus, it is osteoblast has prominent round nucleus at the basal end of the cell, whereas cementoblast has large vesicular nuclei which is folded and irregular in shape. Fibroblast again has large nucleus. Coming to cell organelles, all these cells are synthetic cells, right? I've already said a general cytologic criteria for synthesis cell is it's going to have an increased rough endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi complex, mitochondria, vesicles, right? Or secretory granules. So in case of osteoblast, you have more amount of rough endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, and abundant vesicles. But whereas in case of cementoblast, less amount of rough endoplasmic reticulum compared to fibroblast cells, but abundant mitochondria will be present in case of cementoblast. Fibroblasts have rough endoplasmic reticulum again, Golgi apparatus and secretory granules. Next, coming to resorptive cells. Resorptive cells, we'll first talk about osteoclast cells and then about fibroblast cells. Remember, fibroblasts with the resorptive function and then cementoclast cells. Osteoclast cells. Osteoclast cells usually is going to have a multinucleated. So if you can see here on the surface of the bone, you can see a multinucleated giant cells. Large, it's large in its size. It has more than one nuclei. So it is going to have a multiple nucleus within a single cell. How is this formed? Monocytes fuse together to form these cells. So it is formed by fusion of precursor cells, which is similar to circulating monocytes. That is one type of theory that is going to say how the osteoclast cells are going to be formed. So osteoclast are large and multinucleated cells that is going to resorb the bone. It is formed by fusion of precursor cells similar to circulating monocytes. So this cytoplasm, if you see, it is eosinophilic, right? Eosinophilic cytoplasm with numerous mitochondria and lysosomes. and abundant Golgi saccades and free ribosomes with little rough endoplasmic reticulum is going to be present. I'm going to show a higher magnification of this osteoclast cells. If you can see, the osteoclast cells is present within a bay. This resorption bay, you call it as Hauschup's lacunae. So the osteoclast cells usually is located within this bay-like thing, that is Hauschup's lacunae. And note that the plasma membrane of the osteoclast, where the bone is going to get resorbed, you can see striations, right? So the plasma membrane lying to the bone that is to be resorbed is thrown into folds. This you call it as ruffled or striated border. So ruffled or striated border you can appreciate in this picture from the hematoxyphilic, purple color arrows. It is between the purple color arrows. So you can see Hauschup's lacunae and ruffled or striated border. Along with that, if you can see in the left side picture, you have a clear zone where next to the ruffled border, it is completely devoid of organelles. That you call it as clear zone. So the cytoplasm towards the bone where it is going to be resorbed is going to be devoid of organelles. So how is this resorption going to occur? So in the bone related to the ruffled border is where there is going to be resorption. So the ruffled border is going to seal off the bone and it is going to pump actively protons, right? So as a result of which the area is going to have highly acidic pH, and that's how the resorption is going to take place. So this is how resorption takes place in case of osteoclast cells. Now coming to fibroblast. I've already said fibroblast cells or the cells which is going to have dual function, that is both synthesis and resorption or degradation of the collagen. So rapid degeneration of collagen is going to occur by fibroblast phagocytosis. So this is going to result in a fast turnover of collagen within the periodontal ligament. So not only by fibroblast phagocytosis, collagen degradation occurs. Degradation occurs by two means. It is both extracellular and intracellular event. So fibroblast phagocytosis is an intracellular event. One more event, that is extracellular event, occurs by collagenase enzyme. So we'll talk about that in the subsequent slides. So this fibroblast, because it's going to have both synthesis and resorption, is responsible for the formation and remodeling of the periodontal ligament fibers. And it is going to act as a signaling system to maintain the width of the periodontal ligament and thereby the thickness of it across the soft tissue boundary. So fibroblast cell is going to maintain the width of the periodontal ligament. So because of that, it will prevent the encroachment of either the bone or cementum into the periodontal ligament space. The width is maintained continuously so that it prevents the encroachment of the bone or the cementum. So fibroblast cells will secrete an active collagenase enzyme. It is a collagenase and a family of enzymes collectively known as matrix metalloproteinases. Just remember MMPs, right? MMPs meaning matrix metalloproteinases are secreted by this fibroblast. There are n number of MMPs. Just remember only 3 MMPs. MMP1 is collagenase, MMP2 is gelatinase, MMP3 is stromilysin. So coming to the pathways of collagen degradation, let's move on now to the different types of collagen degradation. So two pathways. One is collagenase mediated pathway. The other one is collagenase independent pathway. I've already said collagenase enzyme is secreted by fibroblast cells. So the fibroblast cell will secrete collagenase outside the cell and it is going to degrade the collagen outside the cell. That is extracellular route, right? So collagenase mediated pathway is extracellular route. Outside the cell, the collagen degradation occurs. Within the cell, collagen degradation occurs. So that is intracellular route. Here collagenase, even though it is secreted by the fibroblast, it is not required for the intracellular route, right? So the collagenase is secreted out and it is going to degrade collagen. That you call it as extracellular route collagenase mediated pathway. Collagenase independent pathway occurs within the cell of the fibroblast. That you call it as intracellular route. Now let's talk about the collagen degradation that is going to occur by extracellular route. Collagen, we talk about collagen, right? Collagen fibers are nothing but the periodontal ligament fibers. It's a triple helical structure. If you can see in this picture, it is a triple helical structure. Over this triple helical structure, this is a triple helical structure, three different fibrils, right? So for convenience sake, I have just drawn this picture where you see it as single collagen, but it is actually a triple helical structure, right? 3 bands. So on the surface of this collagen, you have the collagenase binding sites. So on the surface of the fibril, there is collagenase binding sites. So this collagenase binding site is going to be masked by glycoproteins, that is fibronectin and proteoglycans. This we'll be talking in detail about during the ground substance. Just remember here, ground substance is made up of glycoproteins and proteoglycans. So the fibril surface is going to be masked by the glycoprotein. So the fibril surface is going to have the collagenase binding site. Collagenase is secreted by fibroblast cells. So the fibroblast cells will secrete the collagenase enzyme. For the collagenase enzyme to get attached to this collagen fibril, this masking thing, that is the glycoprotein, has to be removed off. For that to occur, okay, MMP3, nothing but stromilysin, right? I have already said MMP1, 2, 3. MMP3 is stromilysin. Remember, stroma means connective tissue. Glycoprotein is the one that is going to mask this. Glycoprotein is connective tissue, right? Stroma, lysin. Lysin meaning destruction. That stroma is lysed, stromilysin. So the glycoprotein is removed by stromilysin, nothing but MMP3. So this MMP3 is going to act on this and remove the glycoprotein such as fibronectin, proteoglycan that is going to be present on the fibril surface. Why it has to be removed? Then only it can unmask this collagen binding site. So once the collagen binding site is exposed, now collagenase enzyme that is secreted by fibroblast is going to act on this collagen fibril. Along with that, MMP4 again is going to act on this. I have already said collagen is a triple helical structure. So the collagenase enzyme, nothing but the MMP1 along with MMP4 act on this triple helical portion, and it is going to denature the collagen. So once it's going to denature, the triple helical structure is cleaved off. Once it's cleaved off, it appears like this. Right? That you call it as gelatin. Right? So denaturation of collagen occurs once the collagenase binding site is exposed. First step is MMP3 or stromilysin acts on the glycoprotein and removes that. Once it gets removed, the collagenase binding site is exposed. Now MMP1 along with MMP4 is going to act on this triple helical portion of the collagen, and there is going to be denaturation of collagen. Now after this occurs, on the denatured collagen, MMP2 is nothing but gelatinase. Collagen became gelatin, right? On collagen, collagenase enzyme is acting. On gelatin, gelatinase enzyme is acting. Remember in that way, MMP2 is gelatinase. Along with gelatinase, MMP5 is going to act on this denatured collagen. Here there is going to be proteolysis. That is, it is going to be broken into pieces, right? So proteolysis occurs on this denatured collagen, further broken down. So let's have a short recap on what are the process that is going to occur on the extracellular route. MMP3 stromilysin first has to remove the glycoproteins such as fibronectin and proteoglycan that is present on the fibril surface. Why it has to be removed? Then only the collagenase binding site will get exposed. Once it gets exposed, MMP1 along with MMP4 is going to cleave this triple helical structure and result in denaturation of collagen. So on this denatured collagen, further proteolysis occurs by MMP2 and MMP5. This is how extracellular route of collagen degradation occurs. Now coming to the intracellular route. Here, the collagen fibril is phagocytosed by the fibroblast. The cell will just engulf the collagen fibril and it forms a phagosome. This phagosome will fuse with the primary lysosomes within the fibroblast cells. So the phagosome fuses with primary lysosome to form phagolysosome. First is engulfment of the collagen fibril. So forms a phagosome. That engulfed thing you call it as phagosome. Along with that, the lysosomal granules present within the fibroblast will fuse. Now phagosome plus lysosome, you call it as phagolysosome. So how is this going to degrade the collagen? So lysosome will have lysosomal cystic proteinases. So that is going to rapidly degrade this internal collagen fibrils. Note here, collagenase enzyme is not involved. Okay, that is how intracellular collagen degradation is going to occur. Next. The other resorptive cell is cementoclast cells. This cell will resemble osteoclast cells. It's occasionally found in normal periodontal ligament, usually not found. Usually there is no resorption of cementum unless otherwise any pathology occurs, it doesn't resorb. Compared to bone, resorption is going to be less in case of cementum. Origin of the cementoclast is unknown, arise in same manner as osteoclast, that is from the circulating blood monocytes. So resorption of cementum occur under circumstances only. Remember that cementoclast is found on the surface of cementum. Next, the other cells that you see in the periodontal ligament is progenitor cells. These are nothing but the periodontal ligament stem cells, which has the capacity of synthesizing. Okay, this will undergo mitotic division and can get differentiated into any of the cell, that is fibroblast or cementoblast or into osteoblast. Next is rest of Malassez. These are nothing but remnants of Hertwig's epithelial root sheath that is going to be embedded within the periodontal ligament. If you can remember, during formation of root, Hertwig's epithelial root sheath will degenerate. Few of the remnants might be found within the periodontal ligament and it is termed as rest of Malassez. Next is defense cells, that is mast cells, macrophages or eosinophils that can be found within the periodontal ligament. Next, we have seen the cells of the periodontal ligament. Coming to extracellular substance. Extracellular meaning outside the cell. Outside the cell, what is there? Fibers and the ground substance. So what are all the fibers that you see in the periodontal ligament? Mainly you see collagen fibers, few elastic fibers, reticular fibers, secondary fibers, indifferent fiber plexus and oxytocin fibers. Next is ground substance. So ground substance is composed mainly of proteoglycans and glycoproteins. So this ground substance is a gel-like matrix over which the fibrous connective tissue, the fibers of the periodontal ligament and the cells of the periodontal ligament is going to be embedded within it. So this ground substance consists mainly of hyaluronate, glycosaminoglycans, proteoglycans and glycoproteins. Not only that, if you can see, few adhesion molecules are also going to be present. There are different types of tissues, right? Adhesion meaning attachment with the other type, right? Between two dissimilar things, you call it as adhesion. So tenacin, osteonectin, laminin, undulin, fibronectin, all these are going to be present within the periodontal ligament because you see fibers here, you see bone here, cementum here, right? So tenacin, osteonectin, laminin, fibronectin and osteonectin is uniformly distributed. Tenacin is commonly found near the attachment zone of the cementum and of the alveolar bone. So this is going to transfer the forces of mastication, and laminin is present in the basement membrane region of the rest of Malassez, that is epithelial rest of Malassez. Now let's talk about periodontal ligament fibers. So the connective tissue fibers or the periodontal ligament fibers is going to mainly compose of collagen. Very small amount of oxytocin fibers and elastin fibers are also going to be present here. So let's talk about in detail about collagen fibers. Collagen is going to be in the form of bundles approximately around 5 micrometer in diameter, and these fibers are termed as principal fibers of the periodontal ligament. The main type of collagen that you see in the periodontal ligament is type 1 collagen, which comprises about greater than 70% of it, and type 3 comprises about 20%. So this type 3 collagen fibers is present in the Sharpey's fibers region. Just know Sharpey's fibers here. I have already said the periodontal ligament fibers is going to attach the cementum and the alveolar bone. Sharpey's fibers are nothing but the terminal fibers of the principal fibers of the periodontal ligament. So the end of the fibers where it is going to get inserted into the cementum or into the bone, that you call it as Sharpey's fibers. There it is going to get mineralized and it is going to have type 3 collagen fiber. So type 1 is uniformly distributed in the periodontal ligament. Type 3 collagen is found in the periphery of the Sharpey's fiber attachment into the alveolar bone, and its function is involved in collagen turnover. That is, type 3 collagen function is collagen turnover, tooth mobility, and collagen fibril diameter is maintained by this type 3 collagen. Not only type 1 and 3, we see small amounts of type 5, 6, and traces of 4 and 7 also has been found in periodontal ligament. I'll set principal fibers of periodontal ligament. Let's talk about this in detail because we are going to have slides also for this. So principal fiber group is alveolo-dental ligament. I've already said ligament between two hard tissues, right? One is alveolar bone, the other one is cementum. Alveolo-dental ligament. So it consists of 5 fiber groups mainly, principal fiber group. So you see in the picture, first is alveolar crest group. So if you can see, the alveolar crest group of fibers originate just beneath the junctional epithelium. So cementum beneath the junctional epithelium, it originates and gets inserted to the alveolar crest. And what is alveolar crest? The tip of the alveolar bone, the sharp point that you call it as alveolar crest. That is the most coronal portion of the alveolar bone. You call it as alveolar crest. So alveolar crest group is going to originate from the cementum just beneath the junctional epithelium, extend in an oblique direction and get inserted into the alveolar crest of the alveolar bone. So that is alveolar crest group of fibers. Second group of fibers is going to be horizontal group of fibers. So if you can see in this picture, the blue color fibers, so it is running horizontally. So it is parallel to the occlusal plane, but perpendicular or at right angles to the long axis of the tooth. So if this is the tooth, it is in right angles to it. It's moving horizontally. So where is it located? It is just beneath the alveolar crest. So I've already said when you talk moving towards the root tip, you call that as apical. Apical, cementum apical to the alveolar crest group. So that is the region where it is going to originate. Move in a horizontal direction parallel to the occlusal plane or at right angles to the long axis of the tooth and get inserted into the alveolar process. That is Sharpey's fibers of the alveolar bone. That is where it is going to get inserted, right? So we have seen alveolar crest group of fibers. Next is horizontal group of fibers. Third one is oblique group of fibers. Here, if you can see the red color fibers, I marked with red color fibers. So here again, the origin is cementum. Okay, it is apical to the horizontal fibers. So origin is cementum. and it is going to extend in an oblique direction. But if you can see, the oblique direction of the alveolar crest group is different from the oblique fiber group. So where is it going to get inserted? The cementum region is lower compared to the alveolar bone. So it is going to get inserted into the alveolar bone coronal to the cementum, right? Little above it, right? So it's going to originate from the cementum, run in an oblique direction. It gets inserted into the alveolar bone at a little higher level or coronal to the cementum origin, right? That is oblique group of fibers. Fourth group of fibers is apical group. So these fibers you can see in the tip of the root, that is the apex of the tooth. So here this is going to originate again from the cellular cementum that is going to be present over here, and it is going to get inserted into the fundus of the tooth socket. That where it is going, the alveolar bone where the root tip is present, you call it as fundus of the tooth socket. So it is going to radiate. It is going to radiate in a direction and get inserted into the fundus of the root socket. So you see these four group of fibers in a single rooted tooth. In case of multi-rooted tooth, between the two root, you see interradicular group of fibers. So this is going to originate from the crest of the interdental bone. See, between two roots, you have the interdental bone, right? So the tip of that, you call it as crest of the interradicular septa. From there, it is going to originate, get inserted into the cementum portion of the tooth, the furcation point. So I have tabulated the same thing here. Alveolar crest group of fibers, origin, insertion, what is its extension, and the forces that is going to be resisted by these fiber groups, right? Next, one more group of fibers, apart from the 5 principal fiber groups, you see transseptal fibers that is going to be present within the periodontal ligament. So I have already said interradicular bone is one that is going to separate between two tooth, right? So that is septum. The fibers which is going to be present within the connective tissue of the gingiva, that is above the interradicular septum, interdental septum. So from one tooth to the other tooth, if the periodontal ligament fibers originate from one tooth, gets inserted into the other tooth. So it is going to transverse this septum, that you call it as transseptal fibers. That is above the interdental septum. If it is going to traverse the interdental septum, that you call it as transseptal fibers. So we have seen the periodontal ligament fibers. There is something which is called as gingival fibers also. Here I'm just going to add a note on what is the difference between periodontal ligament fibers and gingival fibers. In this picture, you can see the alveolar crest group of fibers, horizontal group of fibers, oblique group of fibers, apical group of fibers, right? So all these fibers we have already explained. So this is the gingiva, right? So this is the gingiva. Again, this just look at this color picture. So gingival fibers are the fibers that is going to be present within the connective tissue. So that is going to provide a stiffness to the attached gingiva. So that is how it is going to be firm, right? So above these alveolar crest group of fibers, you can see the gingival fibers. So as the name implies, from the tooth to the periosteum, okay, that you call it as dentoperiosteal fibers. So periosteum is outer covering of the bone, that is periosteum. So outside the cortical bone, you have a fibrous connective tissue. It has 2 layers. One is cellular layer where you see osteoblast cells, and the connective tissue also. So that if it is getting inserted into the periosteum, that you call it as dentoperiosteal group. So from the alveolar crest, if it gets inserted into the gingiva, that you call it as alveolo-gingival group. If it is going to start from the cementum and get inserted into the gingiva of the connective tissue, then you call it as dentogingival group. There are few gingival fibers that is going to encircle the tooth, that you call it as circular group of fibers. So you know periodontal ligament fibers, alveolar crest group of fibers, horizontal group of fibers, oblique group of fibers, apical group of fibers, interradicular group of fibers, even transseptal fibers or periodontal ligament fibers. So coming to gingival fibers, dentoperiosteal, dentogingival, circular, alveolar gingival, all these are gingival fibers. Now let's see fibers of periodontal ligament in an interdental region. So here if you can note in this picture, this is the interdental bone, and over the interdental bone you have the osteoblastic lining, that is the endosteum, which you can appreciate in this picture. The cell nucleus can be very clearly appreciated over the yellow line. So this is on the left side you have one tooth, on the right side there is another tooth. So I have named it tooth 1 and tooth 2. So two different tooths, so tooth 1, tooth 2. For convenience sake, I have named it like that. So you can see in tooth 2, I have marked acellular cementum, which can be seen in both tooth, right? So you can see the acellular cementum. The dentino-enamel junction can be appreciated. Note here, you cannot see enamel. It is a clear space, right? And then you can see the dentinal tubules here. This is the space occupied by the enamel. So this is one tooth, right? So from beneath the dentogingival junction, from the cementum, it gets inserted into the alveolar crest. That you call it as alveolar crest fibers. And it's going to extend in an oblique direction. So slowly it becomes horizontal fibers. And here you can see the oblique group of fibers. If you can see the attachment from the cementum, origin is going to be from the cementum, and the attachment to the alveolar bone is above the cementum portion, right? So we have talked about the periodontal ligament fibers in the interdental region. What else do you see in the interdental region? Dentogingival fibers from the cementum of the bone to the gingiva, connective tissue of the gingiva. So that you call it as dentogingival fibers from the crest of the alveolar bone to the connective tissue of the gingiva, that is alveolo-gingival fibers. And transseptal fibers, if you can see, I have colored with blue color boxes, right? That is for the periodontal ligament fibers. Gingival fibers, it's a pink box. So there are other group of fibers. If you can see the circular fibers, that is going to encircle the tooth. So in cross section, it appears somewhat round in shape. This is nothing but the circular fibers. So these are the fibers of the periodontal ligament, that is alveolar crest fibers, horizontal fibers, oblique fibers, transseptal fibers, which you see in the interdental region. Not only these fibers of the periodontal ligament will be seen, you will be seeing dentogingival fibers, alveolo-gingival fibers, circular fibers. That is, all these three are the gingival fibers. I've said something called as Sharpey's fibers. So with this, principal fibers of periodontal ligament is over, right? Now coming to Sharpey's fibers, what are these fibers? These are also periodontal ligament fibers only. But the terminal fibers, where is it going to end? It is going, one end is going to end in the cementum. It gets inserted or embedded into the cementum. The other one gets inserted or embedded into the bone. So the fibers which got embedded within the cementum on one side or bone on the other side is termed as Sharpey's fibers. It is little different from the periodontal ligament fibers within the periodontal ligament region. If you can see here on the left side is dentin, and then you see acellular cementum, and then the periodontal ligament fibers. So these periodontal ligament fibers is going to get inserted into the cellular cementum. You can appreciate the fibers over there. So once it has entered into the cementum, there you call it as Sharpey's fibers. So the collagen fibers which got embedded into the cementum or into the bone is termed as Sharpey's fibers. It's nothing but the terminal fiber groups of the periodontal ligament fibers. So How is it different? It's going to be more numerous, but it's smaller at the attachment into the cementum than in the alveolar bone region. The Chartese fibers is going to be smaller in the cementum, and mineralization is going to occur in this. Nowhere in the periodontal ligament region the collagen fibers is mineralized, but once it gets inserted into the hard tissue, it gets mineralized, right? Because that is the region where it is going to be subjected to tensional forces. So the mineralization is going to occur at right angles to the long axis of the fibers. It's going to occur at right angles. So the primary acellular cementum will show fully mineralized Chartese fibers, whereas in case of cellular cementum and bone, mineralization is only partially going to occur only at the periphery. There are few Chartese fibers which pass uninterruptedly through the bone of the alveolar process. So those fibers, you call it as transalveolar process. You remember transseptal fibers that is seen within the connective tissue of the gingiva, right? So above the septum. So from one tooth, it passes to the periodontal ligament space, enter into the alveolar bone, then again pass into the periodontal ligament space, then get inserted into the tooth. Those fibers, we call it as transalveolar fibers. So what is the function of this? It is going to connect adjacent teeth, right? So Chartese fibers, remember, embedded fibers or terminal fibers of the periodontal ligament fibers which got embedded into the cementum or into the alveolar bone. So intermediate plexus. Previously, investigators believed that the fibers of the cementum and fibers from the bone is going to meet in the middle and get fused. So it is not so. If it is true, the area where there is going to be high metabolic activity should be in the center. Instead, the region where there is going to be a high metabolic active region is at the edges, that is in the it's near the cementum or near the bone, but not in the middle portion. So this theory was proved wrong. The fibers cross the entire width and it will branch and it will enroot and join the neighboring fibers and form a complex 3D network. That is the actual truth. So collagen fibers is over, right? I've already said there are other different fibers, that is elastic fibers, oxytocin fibers, reticular fibers, secondary fibers in different fiber plexus. So coming to elastic fibers is of three types. Mature elastic fibers, also called as elastin fibers. The other two groups is immature elastic fibers. One is elaunin fibers and the other one is oxytocin fibers. Coming to mature elastic fibers or elastin fibers, it is observed in the walls of the afferent blood vessels, that is on the walls of the arteries. Just remember, in the wall of the artery, elastin fibers is present, that is within the periodontal ligament, right? So this fiber is going to have a amorphous core of protein, elastin protein, surrounded by a microfilament component. That's it. So mature elastic fibers called as elastin fibers present in the wall of the artery. Okay. Next is elaunin fibers. These fibers are not exactly found in the periodontal ligament fibers. It is found within the fibers of the gingival ligament. But an elastic meshwork with elastin laminae and peripheral oxytocin fibers and elaunin fibers are also seen in case of periodontal ligament fiber. Okay. So here it's going to have an amorphous small amount of elastin protein with a bundle of microfibrillar. Next is oxytocin fibers. This group is very important. So this is oxytocin fiber consists only of microfibrillar component. The orientation of this is totally different from the collagen fibers. First, let me say, where is it exactly located? One end is usually within the blood vessel. One end will be embedded within the blood vessel. The other end may be in the cementum or in the alveolar bone. So, oxytocin fibers is going to connect the hard tissue with the blood vessel. Remember that. So, the orientation of it, instead running from bone to the tooth. Okay. it runs in an axial direction, that is in the long axis of the tooth, right? So in the cervical region, the oxytocin fibers is going to follow the course of the gingival and the transectal fibers. Within the periodontal ligament proper, that is within the other region, it's going to have a longitudinal orientation. That is, if there is oblique fiber group, it is going to cut it perpendicularly in the long axis of the tooth, somewhat long axis of the tooth. Apex oxytocin fibers is going to have a complex network. What is the main function of oxytocin fibers? It is going to support the blood vessels of the periodontal ligament. So that is going to get supported within the bone and into the cementum. Remember, oxytocin fibers are immature elastic fibers. Allaunin fibers, oxytocin fibers, immature elastic fibers. Oxytocin fibers, blood vessel to the hard tissue, bone and cementum. Whereas mature elastic fibers is going to be present on the walls of the arteries. Next, other types of fibers are reticular fibers. These are nothing but fine, immature collagen fibers, right? We know collagen fibers, principal collagen fibers. These are immature collagen fibers. These fibers will have an affinity for silver staining. That we call it as organophilic staining property. Organophilic meaning silver staining property. So where is this reticular fibers exactly located? On the basement membrane of the blood vessels and the epithelial cells within the periodontal ligament. Next is secondary fibers. These secondary fibers are located between and among the principal fibers. So from the principal fibers, it is going to arise, right? And the direction is, it's relatively non-directional and randomly oriented. It's very haphazard. So it doesn't have any proper course. So this will traverse the periodontal ligament space corona-apically. Okay. So towards the crown, towards the root. And it is associated with parts of the blood vessel and of the nerve tissue. That is secondary fibers. So next one is indifferent fiber plexus. These are nothing but the small collagen fibers that is associated with the large principal fibers that runs in all directions and form a plexus, that you call it as indifferent fiber plexus. Now let's discuss about the different histologic slides. Periodontal ligament in the interdental region. This I have already explained it, but I just correlate it with the histological section of periodontal ligament. So here you can see the interdental bone. Just follow both the pictures. One is the lower view of the periodontal ligament, that is a decalcified section of the tooth in the interdental region, right? Here is the diagrammatic representation of it. So you can appreciate the interdental bone here, right? So and then osteoblast lining, acellular cementum. Here you can see cementum, right? Next is dentino-enamel junction. Here, because it's a lower magnification, it's not that clearly appreciated. And this is the dentin region. This is the space occupied by enamel. And alveolar crest fibers. Because it's a lower view, it's not that clear. The orientation is not clear. That's why I'm not marked. So it will be from the crest of the alveolar bone to the, crest of the alveolar bone to the cementum, just beneath the junctional epithelium. This is how the orientation is going to be. Alveolar crest fibers. And then the horizontal fibers just beneath the alveolar crest fibers. And then the oblique fibers. That is the periodontal ligament in the interdental region. Coming to periodontal ligament fibers in the interradicular region. Here this is the interradicular region under a lower view. So you can see the interradicular septum bone tissue can be seen here. This again is a decalcified section, the osteoblast lining. So that can be somewhat appreciated in this picture also. And then the cellular cementum, because in interradicular cementum, it is cellular cementum, right? Secondary cementum. Then this is dentin. A part of pulp tissue is seen on one side of the root. So here you can see the interradicular fibers in case of the interradicular region. And then the oblique group of fibers. In the periodontal ligament apical region, this is a slide where it is focused with the apical region of the periodontal ligament fibers, where you can see a portion of the pulp, and then the dent and rays can be appreciated. Cellular cementum is very clearly appreciated. And then alveolar bone surrounding the tooth can be seen. You can see osteocytes also. And from the tip of the root, that is from the cellular cementum fibers extending to the fundus of the bony circuit, that is apical group of fibers, that is again radiating in nature. And then oblique group of fibers can be seen above those apical fibers. So these are the 3 slides with interdental region, interradicular region, apical region showing the periodontal ligament. And you can make use of these diagrams to draw the periodontal ligament fibers of the interdental region, interradicular region, and apical region. Thank you all for your patience in listening to this presentation. Thank you.